Welcome to the Beyond the Burst podcast, your weekly deep dive into
the gear that shapes the sounds.
We're your hosts,
Dave Lozon
and Sean Finkler from Lozon Music in Canada. Each week, we'll be looking at the most exciting guitars, pedals, amps, and studio gear that crosses our path. Plus, real talk about the music industry and the stories behind the gear. Whether you're a bedroom shredder, touring pro, or gear nerd, just like us, you're in the right place.
Speaking of bad dreams, a lot of work dreams. I've had a lot of work dreams lately, probably because we work so much.
Me too.
Yeah.
What's your most recent work dream?
It's always something to do with the gear, finding the gear, and then not being able to set it up. Like the power cords are missing, or there's something something missing that I can't figure out.
Yeah.
Something like it's very stressful. Usually,
more of a nightmare.
Yeah, like a regular work day.
I think my last one was putting something, it was sending a box with nothing in it. Once you send something out, it's gone.
Yeah.
It is gone.
You're never getting it back. Can you turn this around, UPS? They cannot. They are incapable.
UPS, sending something UPS is kind of like cryptocurrency, right? If it's gone, it's gone. Like once you send it, there's no retrieving it.
Right.
Which seems against the logic, but I'm sure they do that so people don't scam. Right? You don't try to pull something back,
Yeah.
Certain cities, it's more prominent than others, eh?
Certain provinces that start with a Q.
Yeah, I guess we send enough stuff everywhere that you start to realize, UPS drivers are not created equally everywhere.
No, we have a really good one.
Yeah.
Derek, right?
He's the greatest of all time. He's a sweetheart.
He's the best.
He'll come and check in on us.
Yeah, make sure we get served.
He's a very nice guy. But yeah, some cities, not so good.
Yeah, I once had the guy in a certain city selling my customer's Dr. Z amp off the back of the truck. And then it showed up later on like Kijiji or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I had a customer who had some real beef with his local driver. It was like some intense rivalry and
they had like an ongoing thing though, right? Where this cabinet got delivered with like mystery liquid poured all over it.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It looked like a hit. But that's one out of 1,000?
Yeah. Don't want
10,000?
I don't know.
1,000.
Really.
Yeah.
We have a good local UPS situation
very
here,
good.
which is very good.
Mm-hmm. But you just never know. You never know when you're sending it somewhere.
No, you don't know
local operatives.
who's going to be there.
And today, let's get into the podcast here. Today, we're talking about Novo Guitars, one of our new favorite brands.
Definitely one of the favorites around here.
And we can't talk about Novo without talking about Dennis Fano, who is the man behind the brand.
That's true.
So he started Fano Guitars in 2001. I think at that time he was a pretty small kind of one-man operation.
Yeah, I mean, I remember having a Fano guitar in here way back when. It was a used one, and it was great. It was a great guitar. Like a lot of budding companies at the time, they got eaten up by Premier Builders Guild, which was buying up really cool builders and cool amp companies.
Was that Two Rock too at one point?
Two Rock was in there. Baker Guitars was in there. There was a lot of companies that got bought up by this, which the idea that this guy had was to have all under one roof, all these kind of smaller builders, and maybe a greater impact by having them all working together sort of thing, or not working together, but under one roof marketing sort of thing. And this is I think one of those cases of someone with a lot of money who comes in.
Rolling in large.
Rolling into this industry. Gonna spend some money.
That happens.
It does. And, I don't know anything about the person that owned Premier Builders Guild.
Probably a really nice guy.
I'm sure he's a fantastic human being. But a lot of those companies kind of ended up kind of suffering, right? Like that Two Rock era, the post Bill Kinrad era, and pre Eli era was kind of not the greatest era for that brand. And I'm not sure what happened to Fano while they were in Premier Builders Guild, but all those companies ended up getting spun off again to other people after that. The Premier Builders Guild dissolved.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for being independent and having, these businesses operating on their own and in their own little bubble. And that's what makes them unique and special. So it's everyone needed their own identity, and they all came under one roof. It just didn't they didn't have that personality anymore.
Sure, and you also get the economics of it, right? Like what ends up happening is, well, how can we reduce costs is one owner. How can we, make this more efficient? It's like, when a bigger company buys up smaller companies, that tends to be one of the
more of a kind of corporate mentality.
Yeah, we're gonna come in and we're gonna be more efficient with these things, and we're gonna save money, increase profitability.
Yeah, and if you're not Fender and Gibson, you can't do that successfully. I don't think they can barely do it successfully. I think. I mean, that's the truth. But
right. But I think what happens then is you're like missing the point of a lot of these small companies, right? Missing the point of what really makes them successful.
Yeah, small scale, high quality.
Small scale, high quality, being able to move on and make decisions and turn quickly. And, under the guidance of like a founder, like that's passionate.
He's attached to it and there's no compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. So I think Dennis, he even stayed on. It was 2009, Premier Builders Guild bought the company, and he stayed on until 2014. But in 2015, he founded Novo, which is one of the best brands being made today, I would say.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know the situation, what happened there, but that sounds like you got to stay on to prop up the brand, and then as soon as your time period is over,
5 years.
Yeah. You're done, then you're free to go.
Maybe that's a non-competition thing, because I wondered that. I mean, I was surprised that he was able to even do Novo. I mean, he must have signed an agreement that said, hey, we got 5 years here. After that, you can go off and do your own thing.
Must be. Again, I'm not familiar with the situation, but I'm sure it was something like that. It was the same with the guys, the founders of Two Rock. They stayed on, as kind of figureheads for a while.
You need that, right? Because that's the ethos of the company. And once you lose that, you lose kind of a big part of what makes the brand special.
Probably the whole thing, really.
Yeah. So now, 2015, Novo's founded. And these guitars seem like the culmination of everything he learned at Fano. The formula building, the body shapes, they got everything right. I feel like with Novo, he had learned so much in that process of doing Fano and how to get things right. So he really got it right out of the gate, I would say.
Sure. So from what I understand, they had dealers, and then around pandemic time, decided we're not going to have dealers anymore. We're going to go direct to consumer. Probably as a result of, the things are popping off. They could do it.
Right. And a lot of people did it during that era, right?
A lot
direct to consumer.
A lot of manufacturers got into that.
Yeah.
And then it's probably had to do with the amount of guitars they were able to make, and then the amount, they were able to put out into the world.
Right, which is kind of I think, like you said, a lot of manufacturers went direct. And I think that's during COVID, it made sense. Like you said, you can sell everything that you're making. Why do you need dealers then? You just sell everything directly. You have more control over the whole process, and obviously it's financially, you make more money. Long term though, we're seeing that's not working out for everybody.
No, there's a purpose to having dealers, right? The dealers can do things that you can't.
Yeah.
As a manufacturer, the dealers can put their own twist on things. They have access to markets that you might not have really, for people to actually come in, try instruments, that type of thing. Yeah,
that's very true. I think you need the dealers as part of that's part of the whole package. Sometimes we get things and they need a little tweak, or it's another set of eyes on the product before it goes to the player.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important element, and we've seen a reversal in that respect with a lot of manufacturers.
Yeah, it certainly seems now. I think, maybe it's how they approach it too. Like maybe when they went back to having dealers, they've done this in a very sort of strategic way and a very small scale way.
Right.
They didn't go and open, every dealer, every music store in the world sort of thing, or sell to big chains or something. It seems like when they reintegrated dealers, which was first internationally, so we were kind of in on this first wave of that.
Was that 2024 when we started receiving guitars at the beginning of 24?
I guess it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been a little over a year for us.
A little over a year. But they started out with very small selection of dealers, and it's still small. They're kind of curating their dealer network, right?
That's another important element. I mean, not being able to get something everywhere, scarcity is, I think, an important element for any of these manufacturers. You produce too many guitars, it becomes a little less exciting because you're probably producing too many, period, and the quality may drop as you're producing too many.
Right.
But having a smaller network and producing less instruments is a good way to maintain quality.
Sure, and you want those instruments to be, when they are out in the wild like that, you want them to be in good environment sort of thing, right? Not somewhere where it's all like dried out and it's been hanging on a hook for 3 years.
It's the one Novo on the wall. They've had it for 18 months and it's dry, and that's not the type of presentation you would want.
No, for sure. Because imagine if you're making this awesome guitar, and then you put it somewhere where it's gonna come across as not awesome. So like someone could say to you, like, "Well, I tried a Novo at X Music and it sucked." Yeah,
we get that from time to time, don't we? Where people are, they've been exposed to a brand that we carry somewhere else, and I've tried those and they're terrible guitars.
Yeah, we have heard that for sure.
And it's usually because the dealer was a terrible dealer, not the guitar.
Yeah.
Right? Old strings and bad setup and dry and
yeah. Like guitars, I mean, are just removed from being trees, right? These are made of wood, and it's properly seasoned and everything. But we're talking about high quality guitars here.
Yeah.
But still, these instruments are under tension. They're on display in environments, that should be humidified. Even your electric guitar area should have some humidity, as we do. The whole store is regulated to 47%, right?
Right.
But they could move. They're gonna need attention.
They will move. Yeah.
They will move. They need to be just maintained in the store, so that when someone comes in or someone orders one, like that, it's perfect as the manufacturer intended.
Yeah, especially in our climate too. We see some extremes. So
we sure do,
and that has an effect on the guitars. I used to work at a store there. I won't name the store, but they had one humidifier, and it was like this. It looked like it was. It actually looked like a cardboard box from 1986. You know what I mean? This really old, dated. Probably a filter that was molding, and it was never full. Like it was always kind of pretty well empty. Like half a cup of water in it. And the guitars, the fret ends were coming out. Like it was just the most awful presentation.
Right.
Of a guitar. So
shout out to our friend Tom at Tax Systems. He makes an amazing life-changing humidifier system.
It's a life-changing product.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So diving into Novo guitars, I mean, what makes them so special? Because they are special.
I was thinking about this when we were talking about doing a talk about Novo. I was thinking about, what is it? So there's guitars that are like, say, your Fender Custom Shop, real vintage sort of feeling thing, but high quality, but real vintage vibe, real like a lot of, you feel the vibration of the instrument. There's something that's kind of soul about it, and then you have the more like
clinical,
more refined. Clinical sounds like a negative word, but you have that, right? So it's something like a Suhr or James Tyler, something that's like precisely like, perfection.
It's perfect, yeah.
Right? So there's kind of those two worlds. And what the Novo feels like is it's definitely got that vibe and the feel of that like vintage kind of instrument, but it has more of the playability of the more refined thing at the same time. So I feel like they really bridge that gap, which is really cool because that's what a lot of players want. They want they want that feel and the soul, but they want it to also play really well.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. They have a vintage vibe to them, but they feel like a modern guitar.
Yeah.
And that's a hard balance to nail. I can't think of someone else who does it as well as they do. I mean, maybe you think of a master built Fender, you can spec it in such a way that it kind of has a similar kind of vibe, similar thing going on, but still for like a production guitar, what Novo is doing is like they've really nailed that balance, I think.
Yeah, that's it. They really have. I mean, think about it. Think about playing other offset guitars. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, it's not fun.
You're fighting.
Yeah.
For the most part.
For the most part.
Not Surge AM, but yeah.
No, yeah. But, I'm thinking of Fenders, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
Like a Fender offset. Like,
you're going to fight that thing a little bit.
I'm sorry. No thanks.
Yeah,
I don't want to do
fight
that.
it.
Don't want to. I don't have that in me.
Yeah.
The fight. But the Novo, it's like you're getting that vibe on something that plays really well and sets up really well. Mm-hmm. And it's like resonant everywhere. It's just like they got it figured out.
They come really perfect too. I mean, our technician has commented on this, how good they come from the factory.
Yeah.
Which is, not always the case.
No, it's pretty much never the case, really. Yeah. But like, again, they're at a sweet point right now.
They're at a sweet point.
Really good point. Like, hopefully they just maintain that kind of level.
We would like that.
I would love to keep that going.
Because that's a big part of, I think, why they're so successful too. They're still very small, for the amount of instruments they produce. And there's limited availability of them. It's not like there's millions and millions of them out there. So I think that makes a brand more special too, when it's not in every single store, because it is still small scale. They just don't make enough to populate every guitar store with these.
Right. Usually the sign is once a company can populate like every store everywhere.
Right.
It's
they're
not
looking for more and more dealers, right?
Yeah, and then it's not the same guitar anymore.
Right.
Like, it's just like, no matter who it is.
Right.
I've seen that with everyone. It's like once they get to that point where we're making too many guitars.
Right. What can we do? Let's open up someone big and let's make sure we get them lots of guitars, and that will buy us another 3 months.
Right.
Right. There's that kind of thing going on. I think what Novo's done right, I mean, they've done a lot of stuff right, but starting with the woods that they use, using tempered pine, so roasting the pine, using roasted maple necks, I think that's a really smart move as kind of your foundation of your building. These guitars are lightweight, I think in part because of that, obviously because of wood selection too, but they're lightweight, they're resonant, and when you do that tempering or roasting process, it's a thermal aging process, so the guitar starts to open up.
Yeah, and you're reducing the moisture content, right? Mm-hmm. And making it like an aged guitar, like where it's had the opportunity over years and years to lose that moisture. And they're really stable. But I think you're right. Like, you pick up a guitar and it feels pleasant in your hands. It's light. You strum a chord acoustically and you feel all that vibration of the body, just the resonance. You feel it against your rib cage. And it's like, this is... it's
alive.
It's alive.
Yeah.
And that's really good compared to, some guitars you pick up if it's like a brick and it's, you're not feeling that resonance as much and it's heavy.
Not alive.
Not alive.
Yeah,
these are alive. And that's something that they're able to execute consistently, right? Like with some other brands, sometimes you get that, sometimes you don't. But these guys, like pretty much every guitar.
Yeah, pretty well everyone that comes in is like I own that. I own that guitar. That's a good guitar.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they do have like almost a high-end custom shop vibe, every single one that comes in. So I know we ordered a while ago, we ordered a pine body Fender Strat. And I think in my mind I was thinking of a Novo guitar when I did that build, not realizing that wouldn't necessarily translate. Like, hey, let's do a roasted pine body with a Fender. There's something they do in that process of aging, distressing, and I think maybe even sandblasting, but the way that the way the grain pops through the finish, and just the way they feel, the selection of wood, it's just very unique, I think.
It is very unique, and that's their secret sauce, right? That's like when we were down at the factory, that's one of the things they don't show us, right? Whatever that is. Right. The secret sauce.
We did not see that.
Did you say you think it's sandblasting?
That's just a guess.
What about that, like the Andy Wood model Sirs, like where the grain's popping out like that? It's like they use flames, right?
Right.
To hit it, like.
I think that's a different kind of thing. I don't know.
Who knows? Anyway, whatever it is that they're doing, and not trying to get their trade secret out there.
Here it is. That's what the episode's actually about, is us spilling trade secrets.
We don't know any trade secrets.
We don't know. We're just guessing.
We are.
But, selecting the proper tone woods, I think a big part of the formula of what makes them so, everyone's so good. The other thing that stood out for me, now that we've ordered enough along the way, the finishes. Like, talk about a company that's nailed every single finish. Like, you can pick off that menu. You could put a blindfold on and you could point to a finish. It would be a good finish.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. Yeah, it's right. It's all very thought out. Just like the woods. Like, this is like, okay, this is going to work, is what they said with like the wood selection. And then I feel like every finish, it's like that too. This is going to work. And, shout out to the folks that are doing the aging there too. They do a really
small.
Great job.
Was it 2 or 3 of them?
I think there was 2 of them. I think. I don't know if there's more, but those folks are doing a great job with it consistently. Again, I think consistency is one of the most impressive things. I keep saying that. With a brand can do it over and over again. They can reproduce that vibe, the whole thing. It's not just one here or there. It's not a mistake
that they get it right. It's a formula that works.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's a testament to being a good builder, I think.
Yeah.
But, they always get it right with the relicking. And we talked about this recently in a video about good aging and bad aging. And Novo was a brand that came up because their aging is spectacular. It's very good aging. It's not over the top. You can go light distress, medium distress, not over the top. Just kind of it complements the finishes that they do, and it works well with that, the way the grain pops through with that process that they do. So I think another thing that they really got right was the specs that you can get. There's 2 neck profiles. There's not 18 neck profiles. It's like,
right.
Do you like a slim neck or kind of a medium neck? Because that's what we have.
Right. Well, even like the slimmer neck that they offer isn't like, not wizard slim, thin or anything like that. It's a comfortable C neck, and then they have a chunky one. That's great because you don't need 200 different neck options, and it can be very confusing. Then how many different radiuses,
right?
And you can really go crazy.
Yeah, it's like going to a fine restaurant, right? There's 6 things on the menu, right? And they're all really good, and you can't screw up. You're not going to Denny's and picking through a 14-page menu of every type of pancake or whatever, waffle. They've really scaled it down, and I think there's something to be said for that. They don't overcomplicate the process with too many options. So I think that's another part of their success too.
Yeah.
Also, their rise to prominence has been led in part by social media, YouTubers, internet personalities.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's how things are done now, right? Certainly not done with people making records and being on tour and being seen in music videos or anything,
No.
It's a different world now.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a double-edged sword. If you're able to capitalize on it, I know Rhett Shull has been a big promoter of Novo brand, and he's definitely right about the guitars and how good they are, but this is kind of a double-edged sword. If you can't capitalize on that, then I think you're going to have, as a manufacturer, have a hard time kind of being relevant in today's world. You have to be able to capitalize on that kind of internet personality, YouTube, all that stuff.
Yeah. So. Well, also it's like that's kind of all that's really happening in music. It seems like
that's true.
Outside of like the pop whatever that world is, the non-guitar music world. I don't know if anyone's watching, but I think with respect to this brand that we're talking about, Novo, seems like the consensus from everybody, from us to online people, everybody, our customers, everyone I talk, everyone seems to really love this stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think we've ever had that much consensus on a brand.
No, there's like no detractors.
No, it's strange. It's almost kind of strange. And we visited the Novo factory last year. It was a really good experience, and we got to see how they build guitars and, the production line and everything that they have going on there. What really struck me when we, after we left and I started thinking about it, was how good the kind of culture was there. You could tell that people wanted to be there. And I think we've seen this enough with other manufacturers throughout the years where they lose that. There's layoffs. There's kind of, for whatever reason, there's becomes kind of a bad company culture. And I think that's when the guitars start to suffer. And really, when we were there, what I experienced was a really positive culture, everyone wanting to be there and being part of something that mattered,
Sure. Yeah, it was a good vibe. It's a good vibe.
Really good vibe. And I think that's also why their guitars are so good, because people enjoy that process of making them and being part of that company.
Yeah. And, you got to keep that vibe going, right?
They got to keep that vibe.
That's the challenge for companies. Keep what made you great. Keep that going as long as you can.
Absolutely. And so this year, Fano and Novo have merged under a British-based company, Psionic Design Lab. And Dennis Fano is now the chairman and head of product design for both brands. So it's kind of interesting. We've seen this before, seen this kind of thing happen before. And we'll see what impact it has on the Novo guitars, but we'll also see what impact that has on Fano.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't seen I guess we saw Fano at the trade show last year, but hadn't seen them out in the wild or anything for a long time here in Canada. It wasn't something that you'd see, anyone have or play. So be interesting to see if they bring that brand back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Dennis is able to take some of the things that have worked with Novo and bring it over to Fano, or maybe just revitalize the company in different ways. I'm not sure what he's going to do, but be interesting to see how they move forward with that.
It will be. One thing they're going to do, they're just going to keep making great guitars all around.
I think so.
And it's an exciting time for us to have them, like the Novo guitars. We've got some really cool stuff in. And it's we got a lot of cool stuff coming. Right?
Yeah, and speaking of that, we have a limited run. We're not going to talk about it too much yet, but we do have a limited run, kind of the first of its kind, coming probably this year. So 5 guitars, all very special, one-off instruments. Stay tuned for more about those because they're going to be special.
That's going to be really cool.
Special instruments. So, yeah, we love the Novo guitars. It's very exciting carrying them. And like you said, it's a very exciting time when you're there in the first quarter of a company, when things are happening, everything feels new. You do a build, it's the first one of its kind. That's a fun spot for us as a retailer to be at.
Yeah, well, it seems like they've been, like we're saying, they've engineered a lot of this into the builds. They engineered a lot of what works. So hopefully that engineering carries forth with their, their marketing and their other stuff. So they're able to keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for listening today. We had a great time talking about Novo Guitars, one of our favorite brands. And if you like this podcast, please like and subscribe to hear more from us.